welcome to the arrivals. At the end of leg 3 of the Ocean Race Europe, we have got the VO65 class just narrowly off the finish line, and it's Merpuri Foundation Racing Team who are poised to take the win. And we're going to get into what's been happening over the last few hours and why it is that the Portuguese team are now leading. Joining me, I've got Abby Ehler, multiple competitor in the Ocean Race. And Abby, I mean, first of all, the first thing to say is that for everybody that's just tuning in now, I mean, this is a very different picture in terms of who is leading than 4-5 hours ago.
That's right. No, I mean, if you'd asked me who was leading and who was going to win this leg, I would have backed Bauer Becking on board Sailing Poland. He was leading in style. And unfortunately, I think just this latest shutdown in breeze has just opened the door to the boats behind them who've been able to see what's happened to Sailing Poland and then just take advantage of that and effectively sail around the outside of them. So an unfortunate position for Sailing Poland.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can call it what it is. I mean, it was almost cruel, wasn't it? Because Sailing Poland showed everybody else. You know, they were the boat that parked up and then everybody else could follow. And that's why you're seeing what you're seeing now, which is Merpuri Foundation Racing Team with 7 knots of boat speed, incredibly light winds at the moment, just a short distance off from the finish. And we're going to bring you that finish. But before we do, I think it's worth just coming out on the tracker and we'll try and give you a sense of where everybody is and who we can be expecting to come across the line in the next few hours. We're going to have Merpuri Foundation Racing Team in first place. I mean, that's all but a certainty. Axonabel, Ocean Racing look like they're going to be taking second place. Third and fourth, I mean, that's going to be a little bit more interesting. I mean, Abby, just before we came on air, you or I were both agreeing, Childhood One and Sailing Poland, it's not too clear which one's going to come out on top.
No, both now on the same tack, heading at similar angles. I think you could say on one hand that Childhood is slightly inshore and maybe will pick up slightly more land breeze compared to Sailing Poland, who's got a more offshore track. It really is going to come down to a neck and neck situation.
Oh, well, then behind those two, so that would round up the top 4 in the VO65. We've still got plenty of battles. We've got Viva Mexico and then Ambersail 2. Out of shot at the moment, to the left-hand side, is the Austrian Ocean Race Project. And the reason that they are out of shot right now is they're quite a long way back. This is going to be the next few hours with all these boats. We're going to try and bring you some live images, but of course the sun is down, it's pretty dark, and the boats aren't particularly well lit because the sailors' eyes have got to be tuned to the darkness. That's what they've got to trim in. So we have got these boats. They're going to be rolling across the finish line. It's going to take a while to get to everybody, but just in view there on the tracker, you'll see one of the craft. It's not a VO65. Offshore Team Germany on the left-hand side, well, they've been absolutely dominating this leg and really showing the other IMOCAs the right way round the course. Way behind them, we've got the other 4 IMOCAs who are still deciding who exactly is going to be leading that group. 11th Hour Racing are on top at the moment, but the big worry for them is probably Linked Out, quite a bit offshore towards the east, who can still do essentially what happened to Merpuri and Sailing Poland. Linked Out could sail round 11th Hour if the wind inshore gets light. But that's the IMOCA 60s, and that's for the future. And unfortunately, if you're a fan of the IMOCAs, it's going to be some way off. For the meanwhile, we need to keep focused on Merpuri Foundation Racing Team. So let's go back to the finish line. And Abby, let's just have a look at this final approach, because as we were getting ready to go on air, if we can go right the way in to Merpuri Foundation Racing Team and just have a look from the top as to how that boat's been approaching the finish. Abby, I mean, I would say probably about 20, maybe 30 minutes ago, it was quite good. It was a straight line and they looked like they were going to come into the line pretty easy, but their track has bent over as they get closer to the line. The wind's not really playing ball.
No, I think what we're seeing here is the land breeze, which we were expecting a shift as it was going more into the east-northeast, out of the northeast. So I think that would be responsible for what we're seeing in the bend in their track. I think there's coming into a finish at night time in the dark and finishing against the bright lights of Genoa, it's always really hard to see the finish. And obviously the excitement, the noise and everything that's going on around you, it can often be really quite hard just to see where the actual finish line is. So fingers crossed we're going to see an attack fairly soon, and maybe that will get them across this finish line in the first place that they would have hoped for.
Well, a good racing eye. You mentioned attack, and there it was. They have tacked over now, and I think the key thing is their boat speed, still 7 knots. Before we came on air, we were talking to the race management team who are obviously staffing that finish line, and they had a big question as to exactly how quickly the final few boat lengths were going to go, because there was no breeze at the finish line. But we're just looking at the speed at the moment on Merpuri Foundation Racing Team with 7 knots. I mean, that's pretty good. They've still got 5 knots of wind that they're reporting to us. So hopefully all's good, and they're going to be coming into this line quite nicely. Interesting to see that it almost looks like they might have to do another tack to get through that line one last time. And interesting that a leg that has proved so difficult is still asking a lot from the sailors right from the finish line. I mean, Abby, you've done so many of these races. How much energy do you have in the tank at this point after drifting around the Mediterranean in 30 degrees?
Yeah, I think it's surprising when you get to this point in the race that some kind of, energy boost comes on just with the euphoria of the fact that the finish line is close by, and you'll be having all those home comforts when you step ashore that you've been deprived of. And particularly in this leg, they were stripping the boats down before they left, and speaking to some of the team, they were literally stepping on in the clothes that they were wearing and not allowed to bring any kit bags with them. So I'm guessing it's been a pretty intense leg. I mean, not obviously from the extreme conditions, but just in light air. I mean, it's very demanding mentally. Obviously not so much physically, but maybe from the heat perspective, it's been stiflingly hot out there with little shade. So I guess they will certainly not have a lot of energy in the tank. But as I said, you get that little boost when the finish line is close.
And I think this is going to be a special finish for Merpuri as well, because in terms of the scores, they were going into this leg in effectively a 3-way tie with Aktionabel Ocean Racing and Sailing Poland. And with Sailing Poland putting in such a strong performance, it was interesting to see a situation that might have emerged that meant the Portuguese team here were going to be on the back foot going into the final scoring race. As it is, they're going to go into that final race on top spot. And while mathematically they're still vulnerable, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to change what they're doing and go ultra defensive. I mean, these are the provisional scores. So if you're seeing this on your screen right now, this is just based on the positions as to where the boats are ranked at the moment. Nothing is guaranteed, apart from probably it would be a safe bet that Merpuri Foundation Racing Team is going to be sitting on 18 points, as they are momentarily about to go over the finish line. If everything stays where they are, the key number I think to point out is Sailing Poland, that will be in 3rd place on 15 points. That means a maximum on the VO65s for the Coastal on Saturday, a maximum of 3 points could see Sailing Poland get to 18 points. If Merpuri Foundation Racing Team fails to get onto the podium and fails to get a point, that means that Sailing Poland has a chance of taking victory. So, I mean, that's asking quite a lot of Sailing Poland. One, you've got to do very well, but also you've got to kind of hope, or I guess, Abby, better than that, engineer your rivals doing badly. But I mean, that's going to be pretty tricky. Now, I should just say, because we are getting quite close to the finish here, we do want to bring you some live pictures. We are trying to be good to the sailors. In order to see them on the camera, we have to shine an enormous spotlight on the boat. And when you're trying to trim in the dark, there we go. So there's the boat coming into the finish line now. We are not using the spotlight to light them up, because that would be a little bit cruel. But Abby, I mean, this will be very nice to the sailors, because they've sailed across the shoreline an awful lot on this leg. They've seen a lot of lights, and now finally coming across the finish line, Merpuri Foundation Racing Team get to relax and actually sail into those lights to a very well-deserved rest.
Yeah, I think this really highlights how difficult it is to see at night, approaching a bright shoreline, and yeah, I guess just that feeling of crossing the finish line after such a testing leg, and to come back from, essentially they were lying third for the majority of the leg, and to pull out a win, they'll be exceptionally happy with this.
I think I think you've absolutely hit on the crux of the whole thing. They haven't been leading at any point in this leg apart from within this final hour. I mean, it was interesting that they stayed following Sail Poland's line, or at least not massively deviating from it. I mean, I think there would be an awful urge to do something different and break free, but it was a smart thing that they did, trying to find the one moment that it was actually worth breaking free, and I mean, it's worked spectacularly well.
Yeah, I think they've benefited massively from this final straight. As you said, it was very similar to sort of those doldrum conditions where you see a boat park up in a big hole or a bit under a big cloud, and to be able to take advantage of that and see from the boat ahead and take that outside route to take advantage. So this is very much like reminisce of doldrum conditions. Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's a sailing race, and whoever crosses that finish line first has done a better job than everyone else. So hats off to Merpuri.
I mean, it's nice that everyone's together on the boat. Everyone's come out. You can see the red of the head torches with the sort of night tint. Everybody on this boat will be, as you were saying, Abby, they will be pleased with this performance. My mind just keeps going back to the end of leg one, when they were in arguably a similar position, coming in quite strongly, had a sort of a decision to be made, and they took the wrong one, and they went from the front to the back. Obviously not at the back, at the crux moment in this leg, but again, interesting that they made a bold decision this one, and well, I guess silence their demons. If they had any doubts, they've gone now. So if you've just been joining us, Merpuri Foundation Racing Team have now crossed the finish line on the final offshore leg of the Ocean Race Europe, leg 3, which will see them take the maximum of 7 points available for the VO65. They were at the top of the scoreboard going into this leg, but now they are going to be sitting a little bit clearer. It was a tie break essentially between two other boats, Axonobel Ocean Racing and Sailing Poland. Now Merpuri are guaranteed that top spot, but one more point scoring coastal on Saturday will be needed. Now Merpuri sailing across the line, you can just see the positions of the other boat. It does look like second place is going to go the way of Axonobel Ocean Racing, unless something very dramatic happens with the breeze. Don't rule it out. But third, fourth is certainly going to be a battle that is yet to play out between Childhood One and Sailing Poland. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to be back in a little while with the finish for second place here on leg 3 of the Ocean Race Europe.